Hi, my name is Kristen Constable, and I am a leadership and business coach to values-driven entrepreneurs and the founder of The Winning Academy. And today I've got a video for you that is very near and dear to my heart. It is a video around this philosophy that is called whole life leadership. Now, if you know me, you'll know that I will talk to anyone that will listen to me about this whole life leadership philosophy. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because I spent 8 years of my career, at the beginning of my career, working with hundreds of leaders in organizations and really getting a good handle on these patterns that kept emerging around what great leadership really is. So as I said, I had a gift to be able to work with a ton of leaders very early on in my career. And the unexpected gift that came along with that was that I needed to go on a journey myself around defining who I was as a leader, what was important to me. And in order to do the work I needed to do, I needed to be a powerful leader myself. Now, this journey continues, obviously, and it's a lifelong journey, but there were a few things that I discovered along the way that I'd like to share with you. So one of the things that I discovered early on was that we were having the wrong conversation in organizations around what is leadership. We were talking about, and I was building programs for the how, the skills around leadership. So say coaching, having difficult conversations, all of these tactical aspects that were really around how to lead others. But there was a huge part missing in a lot of the organizational programs and in a lot of leadership development out there. And the missing part was that great leaders, when I looked at who were the best leaders, who were the people that were thriving, it was less about what they were doing and more about who they were consistently being moment to moment and who they were consistently being in a reliable way. So how they showed up in work was how they showed up outside of work. They were congruent. And this is what I later came to call whole life leaders. So I'd love to take some time to just outline the 7 tenets of whole life leadership with you here and talk about why these are the 7 things that really set people up, title or not, to show up as the leader of their life, to show up as a powerful leader that's out there having impact. Wherever leadership shows up for you, this is what whole life leadership is all about. Okay, so the first tenet in whole life leadership is that wholeness is necessary for optimal performance. Wholeness is necessary for optimal performance. So a great analogy that I'll use here is one of a bicycle wheel. So the bicycle wheel, for it to be in optimal working condition, all of the spokes in that bicycle wheel need to be in integrity. The wheel might still work if a couple spokes are out, but it won't be performing at its best. It's when it's all in integrity where optimal performance takes place. Now, take that analogy and apply it to yourself. If every single part of you needs to be in optimal performance, needs to be in integrity for you to perform at your best, where in your life is kind of one of those like loose spokes? And usually there's some areas that are stronger than others. But what I've come to realize is this idea of wholeness and taking care of ourselves and looking at ourselves as a whole individual, a complex integrated system, is really, really important to perform at our best, to show up in the biggest expression of ourselves in the world. So that's tenet number 1. Wholeness is necessary for optimal performance. Tenet number 2 is living in congruence with your values is the only way to true fulfillment and inner peace. So I'm going to share a little story with you, a personal story with you around how this became an obvious tenet for whole life leadership. And so the story goes back to 23-year-old me. And I can tell you, before that point in time, I had never given much thought to what my values were or what that really meant in a deeply meaningful way. But at 23, I found myself on the other side of a divorce, deeply disconnected from who I was and quite lost. And it was from this space that really inspired me and initiated me digging into this work around values. Now, when you know what matters to you most, when you know who you really are and what you're willing to take a stand for, that is really important. And the reason that's so important to leadership is that if you don't know that, you become unanchored. And when you become unanchored, you get pulled into other people's agenda. And that is not leadership. So when you truly know what matters to you, you know where to take a stand, you know what you want to invest your precious time, energy, and resources into, that is step one. But step two is actually taking action from that place. So not only knowing your values, but living in congruence with your values. Tenet number 3 of whole life leadership is that leaders make things happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So there's a million different definitions for what leadership is. If you try to look up the definition of leadership, you will find a ton of different definitions. And that's because there's not one size fits all when it comes to leadership. But one thing that all effective leaders have in common is that they create conscious impact in the places that they want to create impact. So they make things happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise. What I love about this definition is that it removes anything to do with titles. And you'll hear me saying this over and over again. Leadership has nothing to do with titles. So you can show up as a leader in all different areas of your life. And when you think about the capacity to lead, is this capacity to create change that wouldn't have happened otherwise, it becomes really cool because you can start to see, where do I want to leave an impact? Whether that be a big thing, like a big legacy that you are out to create, or small interactions with the grocery store clerk. Tenet number 4, integration versus compartmentalization. So there's a lot more conversation these days around bringing your whole self to work, which is awesome. What I'm still very interested in, though, is even in the companies where there's an invitation for this, there's a space created to show up authentically, 100% you, 100% of the time, there's still individuals who don't feel comfortable with this. They have this idea that they need to be one way in work, and then they're another way outside of work. So for 40 hours a week, they park part of themselves at the door. Now, from someone who is the queen of compartmentalization, I can tell you that this comes at a cost. When you have to park parts of yourself, or you have to mask up and you can't be fully expressed, it's like turning down the volume on who you are. When you're able to just show up 100% you, 100% of the time, flaws and all, you are able to work from your place of power. You're able to inspire others to do the same. And this is what really powerful leaders do. So authentic, 100% you, 100% of the time. That is tenet number 4 of whole life leadership. Tenet number 5 is joyfully achieve. So I love talking about this one because it is so important. And what I want to highlight is joyfully achieving is not about it just being rainbows and butterflies all of the time. It's actually quite opposite. And that's because if you take on being a whole life leader, you're going to come up against some pretty lofty goals and aspirations. It's not going to be easy all of the time to take a stand for what you believe in, to go after things that feel out of your reach at this point in time. So joyfully achieving is all about being content in the present moment while being pulled forward by an inspiring vision for the future. What I've noticed is that the best leaders out there who can find that sweet spot in between those two places are the ones that thrive long term. They're able to stay inspired and motivated even when things get tough because they've got that inspiring vision for the future, and they're grateful for where they are now because they know this is a necessary part of their journey. So tenet number 5, joyfully achieve. Tenet number 6 is that self-actualization is actually part of our nature. So if you think back to Abraham Maslow's famous hierarchy of needs, self-actualization is on the top of that pyramid. Now, the idea here is that as human beings, we all have a drive to self-actualize. And self-actualization can be defined as living a life of meaning and purpose. Now, there's a saying that I love: when you're connected to your why, you can overcome any how. This is a huge piece for effective leaders, is knowing why they do what they do, both on a personal level to stay inspired, stay connected, stay purpose-driven, but also so that they can communicate their why with others. It's way more inspiring to understand why someone is doing something rather than just seeing the actions. Okay, and now tenet number 7, becoming the CEO of your life. So if you're not the leader of your life, who is? It's an obvious question. You are obviously the leader of your life. So if you were to take on the mindset of being the CEO of your life, what would you see? So my guess is you would start to see your persistent complaints or things that are kind of bothering you in your life as something that is overcome, something that you can overcome, that you can take action on. These complaints would disappear. I would also guess that things like goals that have kind of always been there for you, or these nagging feelings of things that you want to do, you would start to take action on. You would start to get in the driver's seat and actually make things happen, as opposed to sitting in the passenger seat, hoping, wishing that maybe one day it'll come to fruition. At its core, being the CEO of your life is really just about taking 100% responsibility. And whole life leaders, this is what they do. They take 100% responsibility for everything in their life and show up for themselves by taking action on the things that matter to them most. So those are the 7 tenets of whole life leadership. And I just want to share a dream that I have with all of you. So a dream that I have is that in the future, when I speak in front of rooms of hundreds of people, when I ask the question, who here sees themselves as a leader, that I'll get every single person in that room standing up boldly and proudly, title or not, because they see themselves as a whole life leader. These are the kind of leaders that the world needs now. And my question for you is, are you up for it? Thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of this video and are leaving feeling a little bit more inspired. And if you know anyone that would like this video, please share it out, like it, comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to the Winning Academy YouTube channel. If you're interested in learning more about whole life leadership, we do group coaching programs that really work around this whole area of how to activate and unlock your whole life leader. So head on over to the Winning Academy website to learn more about that program and set up your 30-minute free discovery session with me.